We've heard many times to trust the plan, but many have woken up to the fact that we are also part of the plan. And by working together is what's going to get us over the line. The time of waiting is over. Many people are already working diligently, and we need to support these actions so our voices are heard and collectively become part of the solution. Today's talk on Did You Know is to bring awareness to the UN-run World Health Organization and the amendments they are trying to bring in via the International Health Regulation. I'd like to welcome two passionate and dedicated people who are part of this campaign and are here to share their knowledge on this subject and give us an understanding of how we'll be affected by the changes if these amendments go through. I have with me Deborah Yule and Luke Hart. Welcome, guys, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having us, Michelle. We're really happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you.
So I'd like to start with you, Deborah. So what are these amendments and how will they affect the countries that sign up to this?
So there's about 300 odd amendments that have been proposed. Australia hasn't put forward any of the amendments, and if they're passed, they will be legally binding on all Australians, which is pretty concerning, seeing as we haven't put them forward. One of the things that they want to do is strike out the words fundamental freedoms, dignity, and human rights, which basically turns the whole point of the World Health Organization 180 degrees from what it was set up for in the first place. The amendments have gone through a process of review, and at the end of that, they still have global health certificates included in there. So global health certificates are mentioned in 9 different places, and the only recommendation for those is that they be amalgamated in one place. And that's of grave concern to me, and I think it should be of grave concern to all Australians.
So, Luke, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, so with the amendments, there was, and off the back of what Deborah was saying with the digital health certificates, it could possibly be even extended to an amendment that they initially put forward, which was probably one of the most concerning that I feel, was the passenger locator forms. So if you're looking at a digital health certificate, virtually the passenger locator form would not be too much far from that either. You know, it wouldn't take much for the health certificate to change to a passenger locator form. And the main concern thing, because I did a lot of research into that amendment specifically, is basically not just sort of international or national travel, so across state borders, but also regional. Like Australia is a big place, and even if you were going to go coast to coast, like we are around here, Gold Coast to the Sunshine Coast, you would have to fill out a PLF. You can Google PLF and it comes up, literally says what it is. So it's definitely something that they are heavily considering, and you know, it's basically what, you know, an extension of what Deborah was saying about it being a strike through dignity, human rights, and fundamental freedoms. You know, they do want to enclose us in these regions, and basically, you know, if they declare a health emergency, which is from them, you know, it's from them themselves being that director general. If they decide to declare a health emergency with not really even much evidence, then basically, you know, it's going to be potential of what we've seen in the last 3 years with the lockdowns, the mandates, and then it'll be a matter of them wanting to coerce the military and the police into enforcing that, and that's a grave concern. It should be a concern on everyone's faces at the moment. You know, we don't want to go through that again, and I don't think it's inhumane. It's just ridiculous. So that, like, I could talk about a whole range of those amendments all night, but that is probably the biggest concern for myself. And obviously the digital health certificates is a major concern as well, because it strips away your basic privacy.
Yeah. So what is actually the passage of locator form? What's on that? What sort of information is that? Something that we have to fill out, that they want us to fill out, and they've got all our information? And is that related to the PLF? Are they two different things? This is sort of information for those of us who really don't know anything about it. So yeah, the passage of locator form.
So it's kept very vague, and a lot of these things is sort of kept very vague on purpose, I believe. They do want it to be digital. So we've all gone through the period of certain codes and apps and things like that. Everyone's got a smartphone these days. So obviously they want it all to be digitalized. Even Australia has its own sort of government-based apps. They would probably want it to run via that. This is all an assumption because we haven't come this far. This is something they've noted in the amendments and spoken about. And you've got other UN affiliates such as the World Economic Forum who talk about things like smart cities and items like that. That it just seems like it's directly related, and it would potentially come to a point where, if you didn't have a reason to go out of your zone, whatever you want to call it, precinct, district, then you would not potentially have the freedoms that we have today, So I would assume that it would be just all digitalized and sent to one database, which is a concern in itself because we've seen data breaches. I think even Medibank. Medibank had a pretty big data breach, and they're in health, so that they're a private health. So, I don't know. I'm actually astounded. I think, Deborah, I'll roll to you as well. Like we're both probably fairly amazed the fact that people just aren't really noticing this.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
I agree. I also think that the passenger locator form, so PLF stands for passenger locator form.
I see. That's the same thing. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering too, Deborah, if you might be able to speak up a little bit.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's all right.
So if you think about during the lockdowns, people wanted a QR code upon entering any premises. So I think that the passenger locator forms and or the global health certificates could well end up being a QR code to pass between points. So you end up signing into that as you're going from point to point. So could it be going into a premise? Certainly there's been a lot of talk about 15, 20-minute cities. So it would seem that there would be tracking and tracing of people as you move between these 15 to 20-minute areas. And who wants to be tracked,
Exactly. So they'll know where we are at all times. And especially, as you said, with the smart cities, and, if we move from one area or out of our area, they can keep a track on exactly where we are. Is that what your thoughts are on that?
Not just that, they can also track who you're with, because, who else is going to be in that place at the same time.
Yeah.
If you think about it just on a personal level, when you get into a new relationship, you don't want to announce to the world that you're seeing someone, right? You want to get to know them a little bit first before you decide whether they're someone you want to continue with. Now, if that person lives 2 or 3 zones away, how do you ever get to meet in secret, to get to know that person before it becomes kind of public knowledge? And yet here we are wanting to, well, the World Health Organization wants us just to hand this data over. It's not okay. It's really taking away our personal freedoms. It's taking away, yes, our personal freedom of movement, but it's also taking away our personal freedom of association and of speech, because we're going to be so heavily monitored.
So once if these amendments go through, so is it really like that these people will now control all of us, whoever on all the countries who sign off, and even and are they above our government even?
So there's about 194 countries that are members of the World Health Organization. And as a member, if it's voted on, I think it's for the amendments to the international health regulations, I think it's a 50% vote. If it's a new pandemic treaty, I think it's a 2/3 votes required. So if the other countries vote off on it, even if we don't vote for it, we will be bound by it if we remain as a member of the World Health Organization. Now, if you really look deep into it, and if you look at, so we've been running a campaign writing letters to our politicians at the federal level, both in the lower house and also in the Senate. And some of those replies coming back are saying, oh, well, it won't take away Australian sovereignty. Now, that is true. But the problem is that 95% of the people out there have no idea what that means. So if 95% of the people go, oh, well, it says this is legally binding, we have to follow this, we have no choice, even though that's not the case, what chance have we got? We've seen what's happened over the last 3 years. We've seen how easily our government circumvented our constitution, went round the federal parliament to the states to implement what was basically advisory information from the World Health Organization. How much more damage are they going to do? How much more controlling are they going to be? How much more enforcing are they going to do when they've got the words legally binding proclamation in place? So I think it's really important to stand up against this and say, no, this is not okay. One of the other issues that we have is that in the amendments that went through in 2022 was a shortening of the timeframes. So at the moment, there's 24 months from when something's kind of approved to when it gets implemented. They want to halve that down to 12 months. So we've got over 300 amendments they're trying to put through this year, next year. Instead of having 24 months for people to object to it and go to their parliaments and say, this is not okay, we want out of it, they want to shorten that timeframe down to 12 months. And that legislation is already on the table. We only have till November this year to say, no, that's not okay. We reject that. And Australia Exits the World Health Organization, which is what Luke and I are part of, is currently putting together a petition to go to our federal members to say, no, we want you to vote against this. And we want an official vote in Parliament to say that you will not accept this.
Yeah, they're being totally blindsided. You know, they assume that this would still have to go to a vote. International health regulations don't require a vote. You know, it's called that for a reason. It is well above Australian Parliament, and when it is legally binding, then that gives people the powers to enforce those international laws. You know, so they might be able to vote on some of the things that they're passing, but it won't be much. You know, the main vote is whether or not Australia is a part of the World Health Organization or not. That's where it's at. Any of the 194 countries can exit the WHO, and some have. Not many. Seriously, not many. It's because I think they're still an advisory board, but they're trying their hardest to become that. You know, there's not really another word for it, but that dictatorship when it comes to international health. And to give you an example of how much they're trying, they're up to about their 3rd or 4th meeting, I think, coming up later in April behind closed doors. So they have these weekly meetings and or meetings that go for a week, and 4 in 4 months, you know. So sure, they've had a review committee that said some of these amendments are too far and they need to be watered down and blah blah blah. But that doesn't mean that they're gone. You know, I know some senators have suggested that means they're all pushed out. That's not the case. They're still there. You know, it's just they're discussing what they can get away with, and what they can get away with now is still a lot because Australia is not aware. You know, we're getting virtual, I guess, automated emails back from a certain side of politics, which is just saying, nah, it's still got to be voted on, blah, blah, blah. It's not the case. It's not the case, and if it was the case, what happened in the last 3 years? That didn't get voted on. Just got shoved through in certain levels of parliament. So, and now through the means of hindsight, we can look back in the last 3 years and go, well, that was rubbish. We've got professors that used to work for the World Health Organization saying how stupid some of them regulations were that we had to deal with in the last 3 years. Professors, proper experts in the field.
Hmm.
So if something happened again, what is it just going to be the same as what we had in the last 3 years? That's the big question.
And also to add to that, sorry, Michelle.
No, you're right.
The people that are at the World Health Organization, they don't have qualifications.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask. Yes, who are these people
They're
on
not
the
trained
advisory board?
They're bureaucrats. And our Australian representatives, we actually don't even know who they are at this point. We've got photographs of them. We're trying to find out who those people are, but they're bureaucrats. They're not health professionals. They're not working in the field. They don't have experience. They're not even our politicians. They're, they're employees supposed to be working for our politicians, supposed to be working for the good of the people. And they're power hungry. They think that they're somebody important because, hey, they get to go off to Geneva, to Switzerland, to have all these conversations, and they get these paid for trips. What are they actually doing for us while they're there? That they don't seem to be speaking up for us. They're not saying anything. They're just going along with what they're told to do.
And if they're not even telling us who they are, like, what happened to looking out for the people of the country? They're supposed to be representing us. And as you said, the meetings are behind closed doors. It's like, why is that happening? Why don't we know what decisions are being made, considering we're the ones who are affected by it? I suppose it's...
Yeah, not only are the decisions behind closed doors, it's extremely difficult to find out what's happened in those meetings. So, for an example, there was a meeting earlier this year. It took 6 weeks plus before we knew what had happened in that meeting. Now, even though we know what the outcome is of that meeting, we know from previous experience that even though people might vote one way and they might suggest that these things should be not included, Tedros, who's the head of the World Health Organization, can come along and overturn that decision just like that because he feels like it. So essentially we do have, as Luke said, we have a dictator in Tedros who's essentially now telling the world what to do. If we've got these words like legally binding proclamations in there, how much more power do we want to give this man?
Yeah, and a good example of, I guess, the way the world normally runs. Anthony Albanese was invited to NATO. He hasn't said whether he's going yet or not. Is he? Why isn't it the federal health minister being invited to these meetings? Why isn't? Why are we not hearing about the amendments or the review committee findings from our federal health minister? It's just not happening. So, it's bizarre. It feels like it is literally a fourth tier of government on top of what we already have.
So with 7 months until the decision's made, I think it's about 7 months until November, and 300 amendments, and I can imagine there's plenty of pages in each amendment, and because that's what normally happens, isn't it? Like lots and lots of pages to read through and to try and dissect and work out what the real meaning behind it is, and there's often other things hidden in those sort of amendments, as we've heard over the years. Do we know how many senators or politicians are involved in deciding on these and going through them, and Working
There are no politicians, there are no senators, there is no one in Australia in a elected position that I'm aware of that is actually involved in going through the international health regulations or indeed the proposed pandemic treaty. There is no political involvement in it whatsoever at all. We do know that there are a few senators who are listening to what we have to say and are taking our concerns on board. A few, not anywhere near enough. As Luke alluded to earlier, we know that one side of politics is basically saying there's not a problem, don't worry, you don't need to be concerned about this at all. And we wouldn't be doing what we're doing if we believed that. So it's nothing to do with our elected representatives. We've given the World Health Organization so much power incrementally over many years. And one of the other issues is where they get their funding from. So when they was started, they had a certain amount that was funded to them from each country. So it was funded by countries.
Yeah.
We now have the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation as the second highest donor to the World Health Organization. And they're not just arbitrarily giving money. They're actually saying, this is how I want you to spend the money that I'm giving to you. Gavi, which is an alliance of pharmaceutical companies,
Yep.
of which Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is one of the contributors, is another very big funder of the World Health Organization. They're also saying, look, here's a chunk of money, and they're also dictating how that money's spent. Whereas when little old Australia gives its contribution, we're just putting it into this pot, and there's no accountability for that money that we're giving. And the same is true of most of the other nations as well.
So
The money side of things brings me back to another point, because when you mentioned about the dignity, human rights, fundamental freedoms, what was going to replace that was social and economic development of countries. So we do know that Tedros has obsession with Africa. And we also do know that there's lots of financial interests in that continent as well. I'm just linking some dots for some people here, right? So, I'm going to make the assumption, and I'm thinking a lot of people are as well, that some of the investments and basic, if there's a global pandemic called in the future, it would mean that they would have control over lockdowns and countries and things like that. And then to bring a continent like Africa and its countries up to speed in terms of how they can implement lockdowns and enforce certain mandates, obviously some of that money from Australia and other countries and will go to that continent to bring them up to speed. And obviously, with the way that Bill and Melinda Gates, their foundation, does like to implement their business, one could also assume that Africa's on their radar. And this, to me, and I'm so glad for Deborah to put me on to this, because for me it looks like a big picture which it just leads to total globalization and one world government. We get called all sorts of things making those claims, but I really don't see any other explanation. I really don't. I don't think, if we were not raising awareness and actually waking some of our own senators up, who are great senators, and informing them of what we've found, and even James Rajewski, we can't take all his credit because he's probably done 10 times more work than what we've done, or more even, just on the WHO. Basically by giving them the information and giving them a bit of a thing to go off in the Senate and discuss among other senators and other, prominent people within Australia, we could just be like, if we weren't doing anything, if Canada wasn't doing anything, if America wasn't doing anything, I believe is also an African exits the WHO now, hopefully. If no one was doing anything, then they would literally be writing our sovereignty for each nation away. And they wouldn't be saying, "Oh, don't worry about some of those amendments. That they were too far." Like, no, these amendments were proposed by these countries. India proposed amendments. There was a European country, I think, that was pretty big on the PLFs because obviously they cross over lots of country borders in Europe. So they wanted that restriction, So, they would give lots of countries basically what they want. And for Australia to be such a unique island country, like perhaps different to every other country, New Zealand's very similar to us, but they don't have the scale of our country. Why did we not put forward anything? That's just really weird. It's really bizarre. So obviously we're being potentially told not to, and just to play along.
So for anyone who has any doubts about a new world order, I suggest you look up Agenda 21 or Agenda 30, and there's plenty of information out there. I don't know if it's on Google, but some of the other websites, and that'll certainly get you up to speed on what Luke just said, and also what you said too about the owners, or they become the owners, the ones who donate so much money. It appears that they're all related to big pharma, so I can't imagine a bigger worry than that, or a louder siren, like, look. Jeez.
Danger.
Yeah, danger, Will Robinson. That's it. It's just incredible. And people who didn't believe in the smart cities, well, look, they're happening. So
can I tell a quick story?
Oh yeah, sure.
If anyone doesn't want to believe smart cities, this is a story from SBS that I found today, and it was totally not what I expected. So in Iran, obviously, their religious culture is a lot different to that of Australia and a lot of religious cultures across the world. So they are using smart technology. Now, I want to point something out. So there is acronyms for the word smart. There's actually quite a few. So when we say smart cities, smart technology, it's S.M.A.R.T. It's always an acronym. So within that SBS article, they literally said that they're using smart technology tracking surveillance systems to check to see whether or not women were wearing their hijabs or not. Now, whether they're wearing their facial coverings or not.
Oh, so the hijab, sorry, yes, and yep.
So if you don't want to believe the smart city stuff, I can send anyone that article because it's literally on SBS, mainstream media. They're using surveillance technology that's related to the smart agenda to see whether or not women are following their religious oath or not.
Wow.
Now, I'm not saying it to form an opinion on whether you should like that religion or not like that religion. That's not the point. The point is, it's right there in plain sight, and it's scary stuff. It's scary stuff because, I've got 2 little children out there and I don't want that for their future. And I'm sure my partner, when she gets home, her 2 bigger children running around here, she won't want that for her children's future either.
Well, even the smart meters, I believe they can tell how many times you open the fridge. And things like that.
Alex Antic did one about we won't prattle on about smart stuff all night, but I know, the technology can read how many times the barbecues are started up in parks, how often people have used the toilets, a whole range of things.
So how can Australians and, well, people from any country that's in danger like we are of this going ahead, what can we do to support what you guys are doing and the whole Exit the WHO action? What can we do?
Okay. So the first thing that we can do is alert our politicians. I was going to let you go, Luke, but you weren't quick enough. You can go.
Taking turns. We're taking turns.
You can go.
So there's a range of things. There is an email template which you can email your federal members. We did that at the get-go. But we're sort of moving on to bigger and brighter things now. There's also some flyers that are on the resources page to put up in your community areas, notice boards. I believe some of even the supermarket chains, they've actually got notice boards and people walk past them every single day. So I think the visual aspect of getting the message out to Middle Australia is very important. And there's also videos on there. There's rumble links, I believe, that can be shared, especially among the people that may be on the fringe. You know, they may be sort of beginning to ask questions. You know, how come I see all these new cameras up everywhere? And even questions like that. It doesn't necessarily have to be WHO related. Obviously, a lot of people are more aware of the World Economic Forum and all their, corporate partners than the WHO, but I think we've actually done an amazing job getting the message out there, in the last 4 months, to have that on people's minds as well. So there's those. Deborah, do you want to talk about the postcard idea?
Yeah. So we've got a few initiatives coming up. We still need to keep the pressure on. I'm just going to reinforce this to our politicians at the federal level. We still need you to go visit your local MP in your area, make an appointment, phone them, make them aware that this is an issue that's of concern to you, because if we don't keep doing that, they think it's not important. So we do need to keep that pressure on. We are looking at redrafting the letter we currently have sending to politicians to update that. So that will be refreshed shortly. And I also know that there's some issues with the emails on there. We're also fixing that, just for anyone that's having some issues with that. The postcard campaign. So if you've been onto any of our socials, you will have seen some cartoons, some memes that go, "Hey Albo" or "Hey Dutto." And the idea is that we're going to use those on a series of postcards. So there'll be 6 postcards in total, 3 for Albanese and 3 for Dutton, with a message on the back. Basically, do you want to be responsible for handing over Australia to the globalists? It's possibly not quite that bold, but that's the essential message that's on the back. So people will be able to buy those in packs of 6, 3 of each. They'll be posted to anywhere in Australia and be able to put them in their local post box. So they'll need to put a stamp on them, put them in their local post box, and they will get delivered to the regional office of those 2 particular politicians, right? Now, the beauty of that is that it's going to go through the postal system. So there's a whole range of people that
Great idea.
that are going to see this. We think it's a great idea. That's why
it is.
So it's going to go through the postal system. People in the postal system will see it. And by not sending it to Canberra, it's going to go to their regional offices in New South Wales and in Queensland. So hopefully that's going to make a bit of a statement as well. And to the best of my knowledge, I don't know of anyone that's ever run a similar campaign anywhere in the world. So we're pretty excited about that initiative. So watch out for that in the next few weeks. It's not going to be in the next week, but we're pulling that together. We have car stickers you can put on your car. We just need people talking to their friends, their neighbours, their work colleagues, to have that conversation over the water cooler. And it's not a scary conversation, right? We're talking about the World Health Organization. We know that Britain exited the European Union. If Britain can exit the European Union, Australia can jolly well exit the World Health Organization. It's not in our best interest to be a member. In fact, it's slowly taking away our rights, but it's also compromising our future health. And it's putting that in the hands of one person who's already shown himself, this is Tedros, who's already shown himself to be incredibly evil and who is power hungry. So that's not something Australia can afford, and it's not something that I want for our future generations. So we have to work towards exiting the World Health Organization. To me, that's the only solution, is for us to actually get out of the World Health Organization. As Luke alluded to earlier, it's not actually that difficult, and we're not the only country in the world working towards this. And personally, I'm not sure that Australia will be the first, but once one country does it, I think there'll be quite a number of countries that follow. It's going to be who's going to be that country that's going to get it tipped over the edge first. So in order to have that to happen, we have to keep the pressure on. We have to keep the ideas flowing. As Luke said earlier, we have these videos that are coming out on a weekly basis. Please share them around. There's a whole pile of social media links on the website that you can share things to. And I'm getting a wind up, am I, Michelle?
No, I was just going to have a cough. That was all. I was trying to mute myself. No, I didn't, so you had to hear it. My apologies, everyone.
Oh, good.
No, I was just thinking, right, well, I must get all these links for social media and even the any of the YouTube and Rumble links, anything you want to share with me, I'll put down below. Sorry, but do keep going.
We'll share those with you. The other thing that we're looking at is a petition against the 2022, what happened in 2022 with the World Health Organization, because that's essentially shortening down the time frame to object from 24 months to 12 months. And that is not okay, because it takes an awful long time to find out about it, let alone to start to voice an objection. So that will be coming out. It's going to have to go through an approval process to get put before the lower house. So hopefully that won't take more than about 30 days or so, and that'll be out in about a month. Anything else, Luke?
Yeah, just on the website, if you scroll down past the letter and the email, we do have a subscription link. Actually, I think that we've got a link up higher now as well. So open up Australia Exits, the WHO.com website. So trained to say that other freaking platform. Yeah, and Michelle will put the website link on this as well, which will be great. And yeah, join our subscription list. We only send out one email each week, maybe two if there's something, something unusual or new sort of news from the World Health Organization that comes out. We might send a second email. But basically and you need to, for the people who are on that subscription list, it might be going to your junk or your clutter. So you need to actually move that email into your inbox so you get to see it and read it. And yeah, basically that gives you an update of where we're up to and what's happening. And there's constantly new things going up on the resources page. The website is virtually the center of this campaign. And the social media platforms, which are literally the whole lot, Facebook, Instagram, Rumble, Telegram, Twitter. I don't think I've missed any. The thing about all these platforms, they sort of operate differently. So if you're going to share things to a certain platform, and it doesn't matter which one, we appreciate the help because we're doing it at the moment, where we're trying to work on new campaigns and new ideas. We're actually doing a lot of the social media stuff, and which is fine. But the more that people sort of help us out with this, the more we can sort of jump on to other things that we need to get done. So if you're going to share something on Telegram, obviously you need to sort of circulate it on different pages. You need to forward it, then you continue forwarding it on, so it gets that traction. Interact with the certain the the things that we do share. If you see it on Twitter, retweet it. If you feel comfortable with that, you know, they all operate differently. But yeah, the subscription thing I think is very good. Trust me, you're not going to get spammed with lots and lots of different emails. It's not what we're about. We're about just giving you the information out there and encouraging people to step forward and you know, to help us out, get out of this tyrannical organisation.
So can people sign the petition, access to that on the website,
We haven't got to that yet, Michelle.
on the to-do list?
It's on
Because
the
there's
to-do
always
list.
so much to do. I appreciate that.
I just want to point out too that everybody that's involved with Australia Exits the WHO is an individual and they're volunteering their time. So Luke and I are both volunteering our time. Everybody involved with this is volunteering their time. If anyone out there is interested in helping, particularly with the social media, with that sharing, if they'd like to be part of an official group with that, if they contact us via the contact form, because what we'd like to do is have a group of people that between a couple of hours each day, and you don't have to do it for 2 hours, but you're available to help to spread that so that we can get a wider reach, because the secret to our success in all of this is getting Middle Australia to be excited, to tap into the Aussie spirit, to say that we want to govern our own health choices here in Australia. We do not want to be told what to do by some international bureaucrat who absolutely knows nothing about health and has got no consideration for people's well-being at all. And the best way to do that is to get that to Middle Australia. And thus far, it's talking to people face to face, and it's getting that message shared by social media.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering too, with there's over 107 My Place groups in Australia, and if each group had their exit the WHO action group, that would make such a difference. And if every My Place bought some of the postcards and the stickers, and because they're fairly well spread out. There's My Place in every state now, which is just, and territory, which is wonderful. I don't know about Canberra, but it might be.
I think there is the one in Canberra. I think there is. Yeah, Northern Territory maybe not so much, but I think, yeah, Canberra's got one. Yeah, I think that's the key. Like, we need to be pretty smart about how we distribute things like postcards and obviously the light newspaper. You know, we've really, thanks to Deborah and a couple other people, we've got that over the East Coast and it's circulating really, really well, and it's a great newspaper. But yeah, it's getting those postcards to groups is probably a really good idea. You know, there might be packs that can be sent down all ready to go, and then people can purchase those packs and we can go from there. You know, that might be a smarter way to actually get it out there.
Yes, and then they'd be coming from all different parts of the country as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's the whole idea, is to have them coming from all different parts of the country.
So what's a pack of postcards worth?
We haven't quite worked that out, but I'm going to say ballpark $5.
Okay, and plus delivery, or?
I know that includes delivery. That includes, you're going to have to put your own stamps on it, but that includes the 6 postcards pre-addressed, plus the envelope they have to go in, plus whatever bank fees we've got to have with that, hopefully plus the label to stick on it, to get that out there. And it may not be that much, but that's a good ballpark figure to be starting with.
Yeah, cheapest chips, and so easy too. So all a person needs to do, well, you don't need envelopes with postcard, of course, because we
don't want an envelope because we want it out there.
That's
so
right. I remember about let's see, about 30 odd years ago, a friend of mine sent a photo of me that she took at a party one night as a postcard.
That could be an idea as well. Like, you know, if people purchase the postcards, send 4 of them or 5 of them off straight away. Leave one up on your fridge for a few weeks or whatever, and have a couple of dinner parties, and you know that might actually, because like, we are powerful in this too. It's not the fact of it going through the postal system, and not just that. It's also, you know, like I've seen people purchase certain things like calendars and things like that, that have rallies on them, and you know, it's about that visual representation, no matter where you are. You know, and it can even be in your household.
Yeah. Great work, guys. Wow, it's a huge job, and it is so important that we're all doing our bit, and volunteering. There's so many people, including myself, who are just volunteering because we've got to get the word out there of all these different things that are going on, because it's not in the mainstream media, and we don't know how long it'll be before it is. Some things are starting to drip feed in there, thank goodness, but it's still not enough. And what you guys are doing is just fantastic, and thank you so much. Before we finish up, I'll start with you, Deborah. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I really appreciate you having us, Michelle, and helping us to spread the word out beyond our networks, because that's the secret, is just keeping this going. One of the things I've discovered is that people are more likely to act when they've seen something on your show, or when they've talked to somebody personally that they know. If it's just a random post going through, then it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. So the more personal contact we can have, the better.
And Luke?
Yeah, I totally agree. I couldn't have said that any better. And that's the thing. People can do that kind of thing in their own region. If they want to talk about the WHO, or they want to talk about anything that concerns them, you can do it. Just step forward and do it, you know. Deborah and I hadn't really done much sort of public speaking. I'm sure, Michelle, you were probably somewhat the same. There's plenty of us who haven't done all that much, and now we're fairly comfortable doing it. It doesn't take that much. It doesn't take that long, you know. You just got to be brave, and the reason why you're brave is for your children, your grandchildren, the future generations.
Yeah.
If not now, then when? And we need to do it now, because later will be too late.
Yeah. Yeah, it will. Yeah, look where we are now. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. And if everybody does their little bit, the ripple effect happening around the world will turn into waves, and things will happen a lot quicker. And we need everybody to do something. Get off your behind. And you know, a lot of us were just waiting for ages. I was one of them. I'm thinking, oh yeah, well, you know, you hear what's going on. Okay, things are going to happen. Things are going to happen. But in hindsight, we were always told that it's up to us. It's up to us. And for some of us, like myself, it took a while for the penny to drop, but it has dropped now. And I know that that's what I've got to do, and that's what we all need to do to make a difference. So thank you very much for joining me, and Luke and Deborah, thank you, and thank you for watching, and please subscribe so you don't miss any of the interviews from the collective, and please support what we've been talking about here tonight. Thank you, and bye for now.
Good night.